The man's name was Jack, and he was a truck driver who often worked long and exhausting shifts on the road. On this particular night, he was driving through the desert, transporting a shipment of supplies from one town to another. The sky was dark and the stars were shining brightly, but Jack could barely see anything through the fog that had descended on the highway. As he drove, he began to feel a strange sense of unease creeping over him. He felt like he was being watched, as if there was something hiding in the darkness just beyond his field of vision. He tried to shake off the feeling, telling himself it was just his imagination and that there was nothing to be afraid of. But then, out of nowhere, his car started to sputter and falter. Jack tried to start it up again, but it wouldn't turn over. He was stranded in the middle of nowhere, alone and vulnerable. Panicked, he tried to call for help on his cell phone, but the signal was weak and the call kept dropping. He was alone in the dark with no way to reach anyone. As he sat there trying to figure out what to do next, he heard a noise outside the car. It sounded like footsteps coming closer and closer towards him. He leaned forward in his seat trying to see who or what was approaching him, but the fog was too dense. All he could hear was the breathing outside the car, loud and heavy, like someone was waiting for him. With a mounting sense of terror, Jack reached for the door handle and pulled it open. He stepped out into the desert, trying to make sense of what was happening. The stars and the moon shone down on him, reflecting in the sand at his feet. And then he saw it, a figure standing in the shadows, tall and dark and menacing. It was the figure of a man, dressed in black and holding a large object in its hands. Jack felt a sudden rush of fear and panic, but he couldn't move. He was frozen, unable to do anything as the figure moved closer and closer towards him. In that moment, Jack knew that he was going to die. He closed his eyes, waiting for the end, but instead he felt a cold hand grab his arm and pull him back towards the car. He opened his eyes only to a man with a beard smiling at him. He was holding a can of fuel, and Jack realized that he had just run out of gas. The man apologized for scaring him and explained that he was out there because his own car had broken down as well. Jack felt relief flood over him as he realized he wasn't in danger. The man offered him a ride into town, and Jack eagerly accepted. They rode in silence, Jack staring out the window at the endless expanse of the desert. The man dropped him off at the nearest truck stop, and Jack thanked him for saving his life. He promised to be more careful in the future and to always check his fuel levels before setting out on any long trip. And so Jack drove on into the night in the desert, but this time with a newfound sense of caution and awareness. He knew that in that vast, empty landscape, there were dangers lurking in the shadows, waiting for those who were careless or unlucky. But he also knew that there were good people out there too, willing to help those who were in need. It was an experience that would stay with him forever, a reminder of the dangers of the desert, but also the power of human kindness. Please subscribe and like this video to support me.